All right. Hello, everybody. We are officially live. So thank you all. Thank you all for coming. And yeah, do not hesitate to start asking questions right away. It's always nice if we write personal projects in our resume. So thank you for starting us off. And what exactly do you mean by can we write personal projects? Personal. What do you mean by personal? Okay. Um, yeah, thank you for coming. And I hope to see lots of people today. We always have really great discussions. It's always a fun time, and I think a lot of people get good answers from this. So, yeah, we can start off with that very shortly. MBA plus data science. So you have or you're getting an MBA plus data science. Very cool. Hello, everyone. Stopping in. Hello, hello. Okay, so far I'm seeing, yeah, 60% have you been to live? Yes, but 40% no. Okay, good. Like any ML project that I've practiced online. Okay, so here's the thing. Yeah, so by personal, it sounds like you actually mean kind of not personal project, because if you've practiced a project, if you practiced a project online, technically, you can put anything on your resume. You can put, if you're familiar with the machine learning stuff, like MNIST handwritten digits or Titanic or housing prices, all those really well-known stuff, you can technically put that on your resume. You can also technically put other people's blogs on there. There's not really any sort of rules as to what you can and can't do. But in terms of getting the most payoff for what you want to do, generally you start watching projects to either get better at data science and machine learning skills in a kind of fun way and see how it's applied. You generally do that, or you get inspiration off of that to make your own project. That's why I tend to leave a lot of my titles fairly general. So for my Flask video, for example, how to make a web app using machine learning in Flask. So it's very general, and you could do literally anything. But if you do exactly what I did, then you could technically put that on your resume, but it doesn't really mean much, and you're gonna have a tough time, most importantly, telling the story. So the main part, I mean, there's two pieces to putting a project on your resume. It's one, making it interesting and showing that you know skills, except you'd never actually get a job unless you pass an interview. So to do that, you need to be very well versed in exactly what you did, kind of tell the story about why you were doing this, what problem you were trying to solve, what errors you encountered along the way. And in general, my tutorials and other people's tutorials, they're not really going to give you so many different errors, and we're not going to lay down a path that is changed over time depending on what happens to your project and how you want to change that. So this types of story that you're trying to get out of your project, it's tough to do that if you're just taking stuff online. But generally, yeah, you look at projects online, you get inspiration and skills from those, you tweak it, hopefully a fair amount, but at least a bit, to make your own cool project, and that's what's going to impress employers, both on paper as well as actually talking about it. I could very comfortably talk about a couple specific projects, but when I've just copied code online, I don't really remember it that well. Okay, so how do I think about the Google TensorFlow certification and how to prepare for it? So I think you mean, yeah, you mean the actual TensorFlow certification and not the Coursera TensorFlow certification, I'm guessing. How to prepare for it? Well, if you do mean that the real one from Google, you should definitely prepare for it by doing the Coursera one. So I believe that should be in the description of this video near step 4 or 5, if I remember that correctly. Basically, after you learn deep learning, so TensorFlow, by the way, for everybody, is a deep learning library at heart. It might do some other things, but it does powerful machine learning. And so first off, you have to be well versed in the algorithms in general. So you need to know what a CNN is, various deep learning algorithms. Okay, I'm not going to say them all, but base natural language processing, computer vision, like embeddings, various neural network models. You should know that. And then you have to get good at TensorFlow for sure. Like if you're doing the TensorFlow certification, then that in particular is coding. So to do that, I would recommend the Coursera TensorFlow specialization to help you out there. But definitely just do a lot of Kaggle, like do a lot of just solving different problems. In particular, I don't know that much particular TensorFlow stuff. I more so stick to just Keras, the library that's high level. It goes on top of it's in TensorFlow now, but it's a lot easier to solve these problems with Keras. So that's really my thing. But you should really just get really versed in TensorFlow in particular if you're trying to do that. MBA plus data science skills. What is the best job market for me? So interesting question, and I'm not sure. I don't mean to be rude. I'm not sure if it's the right question. So, you want to be chasing, something, and I get if you're chasing, money and a different place to live, possibly. But you want to. Hopefully, you have interest in something, and you're not just kind of trying to get any sort of job, otherwise you're not going to be passionate about it. But I get it, so I'm going to ignore that for now. I just wanted to add that tidbit in there. So MBA plus data science skills. To actually answer your question, what is the best job market for you? It's pretty much these mid-level companies. So we have, and I can think of some in Canada and many in America, not really the super top level companies, because unless you're really good at machine learning and data science, it's going to be tough to get in. But there's a lot of these mid-level companies that hire like a lot of employees, like tens of thousands at times. And so like banks and insurance companies and here we have Loblaw, which is a big food company I always think of because I worked there, and anything sort of like one or two steps down from like the FANG level companies, that would probably be a good step for you. So the best job market for you, there's so many of these like statistics-y, data science-y, sort of machine learning-y jobs in these banks and insurance companies and all those. So I would definitely look into those. There's also what's the term? Consulting companies. So those are all pretty much mid-level companies, these big consulting firms. They hire a lot of people for many, many different things. So I would definitely look at those. And pretty much any job in those fields. So data science is a broad thing, but unless you want to do something in particular like computer vision, like I'm doing, or natural language processing, which many people are doing, those are my recommendations. It's very general base skills. And I just want to let you know, you probably you're most likely good to go with an MBA in data science skills, but do check the video description if there's anything that might help you out there for certificates or just learning material as well. I could recommend for you. Is it mandatory to learn calculus fully to learn machine learning? I'm going to hit that with a hard no. So I don't blame you for asking the question at all. Don't get me wrong, but my answer is no. So what you do need to know for calculus. So basically, what machine learning is about decreasing loss functions or error functions. Basically, if you have a regression line, it has some sort of error. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. Basically, in all of machine learning, you make some sort of model. Generally supervised learning, you make this model, and it's not ever fully right. It has some degree of wrongness. So we want to decrease that wrongness or error as much as possible, and we want to understand the calculus somewhat involved to do that. And really all we need to know is that you're trying to learn these different values in a function. When we mean machine learning, we generally mean learning or trying to find these values of interest, and we use calculus to try and decrease the loss function to find those parameters that do decrease the loss function or error. So once you understand that, basically what derivatives and what a gradient vector is, and then the concept of gradient descent isn't totally necessary but wouldn't hurt, that's what I would learn for calculus. You're very welcome. Okay, great. Yeah, great. You're very welcome. Hi, Gaming Data Duo. Thank you. Nice background. Right, it is a nice background. Hey, I dig it. I love it. What pushed me to be qualified for AI, ML, and data science? Give me some advice to learn more and be better in deep learning. Okay, and thank you. I am following you and you are awesome. Well, that's very nice. Thank you. I agree. I am awesome. So basically what pushed me to be qualified in terms of my inner drive is basically my story, and doesn't have to be everyone's story, but I basically just threw myself into mathematics co-op degree at University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada. And so I was just basically interested in video game artificial intelligence, and that brought up all sorts of terms for me, like machine learning, well, AI itself, this term called reinforcement learning. And so since I was already learning, this was in like second year, I had already learned calculus, linear algebra, and all this stuff that made it really easy to learn about these books. I just kind of got pushed to do that. And then, I got really interested in getting jobs. I was in the co-op degree, so I started to get a job at an insurance company, and that's why I mentioned that kind of what I said earlier about there's a lot of insurance company jobs in this. So I got one of those, some other many machine learning jobs as well. I'm in computer vision right now, and it's just really, really interesting. It's really my inner drive. And what got me to be actually qualified for these jobs, well, to be honest, university degree doesn't hurt. It's a really good university. So I'm in statistics, by the way. You learn a lot of math and statistics and computer science. So all of those help together. And basically, that's my story. But for what I would give advice to other people is if you're not in a very credible and well-known university slash college degree, then what I really recommend you do is check the video description right now, and they have many certificates in order that I would recommend you to be qualified for these things. So a university degree, a good one, is what I would recommend first and foremost, but that's just not a great option for every single person. And a master's is also a great option. I would definitely never put that down. But for a lot of people, I think the certificate route, plus whatever background and projects you already have or can do, is going to really, really help. So I would follow what's down below in terms of a learning pathway, as well as the certificates I'd really, really recommend getting at any point in time that will really help your LinkedIn and your resume. I would get the machine learning one from Andrew Ng and or the deep learning one from Andrew Ng as well. So these are in the description. I would check those out. And then the TensorFlow one, if you can get to that, would be really, really helpful as well as everything is moved onto the cloud, basically. So there also should be one down there that talks about like big data and stuff on the cloud. So any of those, the learning material is great, by the way, and it's free 100%, even if you don't want to pay. But I really highly recommend, if you're talking about trying to be qualified or at least get a job in these things, these certificates could really, really help you out. So I would highly recommend taking a look at those in the description. Hi Arshia, hello, how are you? Nice to see you. Best courses for machine learning and deep learning. Yeah, 100%. So what I just said, basically, I would highly recommend doing the Andrew Ng machine learning course. I would get the certificate because employers absolutely love that one. And the deep learning specialization down below as well. Check those out. The certifications are fantastic. The learning material is fantastic. It is free if you don't want to pay, but I highly recommend getting certificates if you're in a position for that to help you out, and you almost certainly are, but not necessarily. So should we remove an ID column if all the observations are not unique? Well, the point of an ID column is to uniquely identify a row. So, at least it should be. So if all the observations are not unique, well, I probably? I don't totally know what you mean. I have learned Python, a couple of visualization tools. Now trying to learn machine learning followed by deep learning. Absolutely the good pathway to go there, so 100% agree. I'm not sure how much depth of knowledge I should gain before starting to appear for interview. Well, you can interview, you can interview at any stages, and it's not like you do an interview and therefore that company will never consider you again, or you've made a fool of yourself and that specific person or group of people have some bad association with you. It just doesn't work that way. So you can start interviewing whenever you want, and I recommend you do kind of apply at any time. But when I'd say you're ready is basically the pathway that you said so far. So for the pathway down below, skip the IBM data science because you said you've learned some couple of visualization tools. So you probably don't need to go through that unless you want the certificate, which employers do love as well. But you're now trying to learn machine learning, so that's why you should take the machine learning course by Andrew Ng, and then followed by deep learning. You should take the deep learning specialization by Andrew Ng. Those are both down below, and if you're talking about getting an interview, you probably want a job, so I would definitely recommend getting those two certificates. That would really, really help you out. Is it necessary to have a master's or PhD to get machine learning jobs in good tech companies? Is it necessary to have a master's or PhD to get ML jobs in good tech companies? Okay, so this one is very particular, and basically the machine learning jobs in big tech companies. So when I say big tech, I mean FANG, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. They often require master's or PhD, or what you can do is go with a software degree, or not a software degree. You can go in, get a software job that doesn't require a master's or PhD, and then kind of transfer internally, either from internship / co-op level or through like going in full-time. Either of those work. But often the answer is mostly yes, and it's a yes, or like a yes, because what someone writes down on paper is absolutely not what is actually true. But in general, you do. According to paper, oftentimes you do for these big tech companies, but for medium level companies, which I think most people are probably aimed at, that's the majority of jobs. It's a good enough, it gets you into this country or a different country if that's where you want to go, and it gives a pretty good source of money. So that you probably don't need a master's. Mostly I recommend getting an undergraduate degree in something, because employers really like that, and then get those certificates down below, as many as you can, that will help you get over there, or get the job, basically. Where can I get machine learning project ideas? So basically, I have a fair amount of projects now on my channel myself, so make sure to check those out and see what I'm doing. I could list off a bunch of ideas. You could go to Kaggle. Mainly, you should go to Kaggle. It's Kaggle. And that has datasets, a lot more datasets than it does competitions. A lot of people just know it for competitions, but it has a lot of just datasets that'll give you a lot of inspiration for what you can do. Just pick a problem, solve it with 10 different algorithms, and then realize, oh, okay, I can just kind of solve any problem like this. I'm just feeding it input, getting output based off what my model is doing, and these models are all pretty much doing the same thing. So basically Kaggle is where I'd recommend, maybe my channel, and maybe I'm sure there's other YouTube channels as well. Just search like project ideas. Actually, I have a video from way back about like 21 project ideas in 2021 or something like that, and that could also help you out as well if you try to find that video. You have confusion after doing the Google Data Analytics professional course. Should I go for DL/ML or work on projects? So it totally depends on what you want to get most quickly. So if you're trying to get a job, then if you're trying to get a job in just analytics, then you're ready to work on projects. And a certificate, like a couple more certificates probably wouldn't hurt. But that's actually fine. Google Data Analytics plus some projects is great to get an entry-level analytics job. But I think to get a better job, in my opinion, often money-wise, but also just how good the job is in general, I would do machine learning and deep learning for sure, and I think it's just fascinating stuff. So I definitely check the description below and see those courses. I think they're really, really interesting and would help you out get a job a lot. Okay, how important is data structures and algorithms for machine learning and deep learning jobs? So some employers ask these questions and some don't. In terms of learning and ignoring interviews and anything to do with actually getting a job in particular, data structures and algorithms is extremely helpful. At least doing it once and kind of understanding what they're talking about, what's out there, and then maybe forget some of it after, it will still greatly benefit you. But you need to be a decently good programmer, so you should definitely know what a dictionary is and why a dictionary is good, why it's better than a list at some things, or why you're okay with a list at times. Do you really need to go down the route of what they call competitive programming, which often means getting the absolute best algorithm that is like O(n) time. And if you don't know algorithm efficiency, basically I'm just saying it's like linear, it's pretty fast, or log n, it's a lot faster, or n squared, it's a lot slower. These different algorithm speeds, that's something you'll learn about in data structures and algorithms, which is going to greatly benefit you no matter where you go. In terms of the actual interview itself, some employers will ask those questions and some of them won't. So the level as to which they go down, unless you're applying for a FANG level job, they're probably not going to ask you something that normal programmers get asked, even in, so for example, in Waterloo Co-op, this is our internship program here, co-ops here get asked pretty difficult questions. For strictly software jobs, they get asked those data structures and algorithms questions. And the machine learning and data science jobs, generally you don't. Sometimes you do, but generally you don't. And it really just depends how much your employer happens to have a software background and happen to care about those things. Sometimes you get a mixture where it's like 95% machine learning and data science stuff, and then they ask like a little bit about like encapsulation or object-oriented principles, or Python specific or something like that. But often they don't ask too much about what we'll abbreviate as DSA, data structures and algorithms. They don't ask that too much for the most part, but sometimes they do, and it does benefit you. Probably a stupid question. I'm going to ignore that first 4 words or whatever, because it's not. But suppose I complete the IBM data science course and do a master's in some other field like economics. Can I still get a job in data science field? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. So it does slightly depend on what your undergraduate degree is, I would say. But in general, that's a pretty great pathway. IBM is a great certificate that helps anybody out. For anyone looking for a job, I think it's a really good learning material and a really good certificate. But the master's in some other field like economics is great. Like, that's awesome. And it does have quite a bit of tie over to mathy concepts and even statistics at times. So for sure. And even then, it doesn't really matter too much what your master's degree is per se. Of course, it does have an impact, but as long as you're getting a master's in something, that's great. You don't necessarily need it, but it's great. And I think you'd be good to go with that pathway. I would still try and learn machine learning if you can down below. Okay, so professionals generally prefer to learn statistics and calculus for data science. Yeah, they generally do. Generally, before diving into libraries and application side. So share my order of doing the same. My answer, the TLDR, too long don't read, or quick, is that I want you to do whatever is enjoyable to you. Okay, so the best way to learn is have fun with it. And if you start learning calculus and you don't like it, then don't do it. If you start liking calculus and you do like it, then keep doing it. But in terms of my efficient pathway of what I'd recommend, ignoring the whole mental side of things, which you really can't, you really should think about that and try different options. But if you were to ignore that, then my pathway would be probably learn it when you have to. So if you said in particular for data science, I say to know data science, you need to know machine learning and preferably deep learning if you can. So I would try to do that stuff down below, the machine learning course, the deep learning specialization, the TensorFlow specialization, if you can. I think they greatly benefit everybody learning data science, and again, the certificates are great. But if you find you're in trouble there, if you are in if you think you need statistics and calculus knowledge, then go watch a couple of YouTube videos maybe about these concepts. I don't necessarily recommend reading a whole book in stats if you think you need some stats help, or definitely not reading, I've read 3 full books in calculus before, or 3.5, I guess, for, basically, first year calculus is just derivatives mostly. Second year is mostly integrals, and third year is about multivariate calculus. You really just need a little bit of that, and mostly just get to if you understand what gradient descent is, which you probably don't yet, and that's okay. Try to get yourself to the place where you understand what the algorithm gradient descent is, and then you'll be able to learn these things a lot easier, and you don't necessarily need to know all the calculus. And by the way, you should also ask linear algebra. You do need to know a little bit of linear algebra as well. But the machine learning course, or from Coursera, from Andrew Ng, the one down below, I recommend that so much because most people can just jump into that pretty much right away, because he teaches these fundamental concepts like linear algebra and a little bit about the calculus that you need to know to actually progress. So I highly recommend getting that certification if you can, or certificate, and I think you can jump into it. So open source for machine learning. Do Kaggle help to land a job? Should I contribute to open source for machine learning? If it's something you're passionate about, I see a lot of people doing open source stuff that helps the community, and people get burnt out and don't really care about it too much because it's not, I try to be as selfless as I can by providing content to you guys that, I think is really beneficial, and I'm trying to help everybody out as much as I can. But at the same time, everybody should be a little bit selfish. And so, yes, you should if you want to, and if you're getting something out of it. But if you're strictly just doing it because you care about, if you do just care about the community, that's awesome and it's super super helpful. But don't do it because someone said once, like, yeah, you should contribute to open source. You could, but I don't really necessarily recommend it. I would focus mainly on your own personal projects and your own skill set more so than that. But absolutely, if that's something you want to. And yes, it would help land a job, and Kaggle absolutely helps land a job. Hi, where can I learn to implement ML ops? So there's not on in the description down below. I should add that at some point. You can actually search on Coursera. Go ahead. There's an ML ops specialization from Coursera, and that content should be free if you don't get the certificate. And the certificate probably is somewhat helpful, but I don't think it's a super well-known one. I try to recommend the ones that employers actually do know. But the material should be free if you search Coursera ML ops, and that would be quite beneficial, I'm sure. I haven't actually taken it in particular, but I believe Andrew Ng is the teacher. If he's not, then I thought he was, but let me know how that goes. And build scalable and productionized ML models. So to build great models, that you should just do the machine learning and deep learning specialization down below for sure. And knowing MLDL algorithms also down below are enough. By the way, if you don't know what I mean by down below, I just mean check the video description. Also knowing ML/DL algos are enough, or should we know anything else to learn ML ops? You should learn in general, coding, maybe a little bit about web development, not necessarily, but you might want to know how Flask works, or maybe into something like how Kubernetes works, if you've heard of that. But in general, you should just, if you do want to learn ML ops, I would just kind of learn ML models, deep learning models, and then jump to, trying to implement this stuff like through Flask or through whatever you really want to do, or whatever the ML ops specialization suggests, I suppose. What is best source to learn math and stats for data science? Okay, so this is one where I would probably recommend books. So often, and I mean, you'll hear me say it a million times because I truly believe it, that the courses down below are great. But for specifically the math and statistics for learning this stuff, this is when I recommend books 100%. So I did release a video, I believe it should still be my most recent video from a couple days ago, that talks about the different materials. I basically ranked all of the free and not free machine learning materials. And so to do that, I would the ones I would pick from that are Introduction to Statistical Learning is a great book. It's in R, but you can ignore all the R stuff if you want to. It's mostly about the concepts, which is really great. And as well as there's some other books that would help you out, which if you really want to learn all of the math and stats, then honestly just go ahead and look up the most popular math and stats books for data science, and any of them are quite fine. But the books that I really love in particular are Introduction to Statistical Learning. Elements of Statistical Learning is a different book that's really difficult, so I probably wouldn't recommend that for most people. And then for the stats stuff, I mean, I think that book is probably enough. So I would do that, and then maybe the 100-page machine learning book is a great introduction to everything. But in terms of learning all the statistics, if you really want to, read a statistics book, read a calculus book, read a linear algebra book, and that is how you learn it technically. But the book I said before, Introduction to Statistical Learning, is probably what I would recommend for you. How can I apply AI to aerospace engineering? This is going to be tough for me. And if I will do a master's in propulsion systems, how can I apply AI to it? Sorry if my words. No, your words are arranged, but it's just not a question that's well suited for me because I don't really know how you can apply AI to propulsion systems or aerospace engineering. I'm sure you can though. Where can I do internship for machine learning? You can ML ops is basically the idea of just deploying machine learning models and having it in production. So yeah, it's just it's not like Kaggle where we go on Kaggle and we start making machine learning models. That's not ML ops because it's not doing anything. We didn't actually put it in production and it's not doing anything useful. ML ops is the study around that. And you can do an internship for machine learning at almost every company in the world now. Not everyone, but I think that every company in the world could benefit from an employee knowing machine learning. So you could either talk somebody into doing it or the many jobs available already. If you want to get a job or get an internship in machine learning, you should go to LinkedIn and check their job board, maybe the Indeed job board, but I like the LinkedIn one a lot more, and there's going to be a lot of duplicates, so I'd probably pick just the bigger one. And then just look up a list of companies. So like top companies or big companies or companies in whatever space you're interested in. And just go to each website because most of the jobs are just available on those. Or to really get an internship, often you need to be in a degree that has a co-op program or an internship program, and they'll have their own job board as well. Whew. One more query. How can I get a job in banking domain as data analyst slash data scientist? You have 15 plus years experience. So you're saying 15 plus, so tell me later. I'll start answering these other questions, but you have 15 plus years experience in what? And that will very much change the way I answer that question. You are a machine learning engineer. I assume I still read maximum likelihood estimation every time I see MLE because of how much stats I've done. I am a machine learning engineer and a startup with 2+ years of experience. That's so cool. I'm so proud of you. Good job. I'll be starting my master's in Canada in January. Welcome. Okay. Hello. Can I recommend things that can help you stand out from the crowd? So good ways to stand out from the crowd, and I don't know what you do know. Do you mean in your, actually, I have to ask you a follow-up question as well. By stand out from the crowd, do you mean since you're starting your master's, are you trying to stand out in the startup, like how to be really do something cool in the job? Are you trying to stand out or get a better job once you're doing your master's? Stand out from crowd, trying to get what? Trying to do what? Hey Greg, if I want to develop a website that stores and retrieves some data from a database like Firebase. Oh yeah, I haven't used it since grade 12. What software do you suggest for that? Like the framework and language I should use? So like Firebase is a bit of a weirder database, but for the most part, you probably want to just do RB, like relational databases. I would almost certainly recommend. That's what most jobs are in. And so I would just learn SQL. And in terms of the framework and language, it doesn't really matter. If you're using a popular database, they all have APIs where basically what you would just do is call some function in a programming language and then pass a string like select star from table, which is SQL syntax if you guys didn't know that. Could I differentiate between machine learning engineer and data scientist because people are using these terms interchangeably? Absolutely. So the thing is, I consider a data scientist to know machine learning because if you're a data scientist that doesn't know machine learning, uh, you have a really tough time differentiating yourself between a data scientist and a data analyst because an analyst, studies data. They do use stuff like Spark, Apache Spark or Python or R to manipulate data and to get interesting results from it. And if that's you, but you don't know machine learning, and you somehow call yourself a data scientist, then I mean you're an analyst. Okay, so the reason that I use them somewhat interchangeably, I actually like to, is because a data scientist and a machine learning engineer, generally the difference there is that a data scientist knows machine learning concepts and they can make models if you want to make models, but you're also an analyst at heart. So you do a lot of analytics type work. And so you're kind of a catch-all position where, some days you're looking at data, you're trying to get interesting results from that. Maybe you're making a machine learning model, maybe it's deep learning, maybe it's just regression. But then a machine learning engineer, and yes, of course, they have to manipulate data. You still have to know stuff like SQL and Spark, most likely. But the thing is, a machine learning engineer, they're hired to do a machine learning job. And so generally, you would maybe be hired as a computer vision engineer, where you're making some sort of deep learning model there, or natural language processing, or something like that. Do I think convex optimization is an important course in college? So that's actually one that I didn't take, but yes, it absolutely would help you out. Uh, Convex optimization is definitely something that comes up in machine learning a lot. You know, it's about trying to minimize functions at heart, and that's how that works. So yes, I would recommend that. Is it important? You're fine if you don't take it. You're not really gonna, your life's not gonna change too much if you do, but it's a course that you might want to aim for. Yeah. How can I get a job? Why did I, isn't that the same? I swear I read that same thing above. Yeah, that's the same message pasted above. So, okay. Which online NoSQL, oh, okay. Which online NoSQL DBMS would I suggest for a simple dynamic website? Um, so I forget them and I don't often use them because it doesn't come up for me. I think is MongoDB the popular one that's no SQL, I think. I forget. I don't really know this stuff too much. Sorry. Follow up, stand out from the crowd for any machine learning or data science jobs. Yes. And I do ask on the last question here. So, guys, make sure there's lots of people watching. So, make sure you have questions for after I answer this so that I don't get stuck. I'm sure there's something. So, just literally anything. Tell me about your life and ask some questions. Okay, yes. So, yeah, MongoDB probably. So, stand out from the crowd for any machine learning or data science jobs. So, in general, let me define the normal data science or machine learning engineering is that you know SQL. If you don't know SQL, please do that. Uh, if you don't know Apache Spark / PySpark, that is a really good way to stand out. And any of the certificates down below, if you're trying to get a job, I think a lot of people actually don't understand the power of these certificates. Where, seriously, my friend that's working the same job as me, a big reason why he got an interview where over like hundreds of people applied, really smart people applied, he got an interview because he put these Coursera certificates, specifically the same ones I'm suggesting, he put those on his LinkedIn. So a really good way to stand out from the crowd is to get the pathway down below, get those certificates. The ones in particular I think are extremely helpful for everybody is the IBM or the Google, depending on what you want. Read about the difference between the two. They're both great, but don't get both. Both is a waste of your time. IBM is a great choice. And the machine learning one from Andrew Ng, the deep learning specialization, and if you can, the cloud and probably the TensorFlow specialization. If you can get those certificates, that is a really good way to stand out from the crowd, 100% if you're looking for a job. So I would go to the video description there and check those out. And a different skill. So if I'm going to ignore Coursera for a moment, that I think is definitely the right answer. But there's also multiple right answers. I would learn Flask if you can. So doing web development, I would really recommend, getting a little bit better of a development skill set than other people have from specifically a web point of view would help. It goes back to that ML ops discussion. By the way, I should really end this poll. I mean, it's kind of interesting to have it in there, but let me see the results of this poll before I carry that on. Actually, no, I'll just let that go. So basically, where was I? So Flask MLOps is Flask / MLOps are really good. Other great choices are, what else is there? So cloud. People don't know, or people seem to don't not understand that when you go to a company, we do as much as we possibly can on the cloud. We train models sometimes on local machines because it might be cheaper that way for us to have our machine, especially if people already do. But most of the stuff we end up scaling and putting on the cloud. So anything like AWS, GCP is Google's, AWS is Amazon's, Azure is Microsoft's. Those three are really big. Heroku, so doing Flask, which is a web framework, plus Heroku, putting that on a Heroku client is really good. And really just getting and understanding the idea of setting stuff up and using stuff that's not running on a machine that you have, but understanding it is running on a machine somewhere. It's the same thing, but we're just using the network and some machine that's in some server farm somewhere that is doing the work. So I'd highly recommend learning the cloud as well. I believe I should have one of those certifications down below that talks about the cloud. And as much as you can, try to stretch out. So for these answers, definitely, if you look at my pathway down below, so it gets more difficult as you go on, and so the certificates at any point are very, very helpful. If you can get to the end, that's how to really stand out, and that's why I laid out this pathway, is, the beginning, probably everybody has at least learned these concepts, but the certificates are helpful, and then as you move further and further on, you get much more specific and unique in your niche, basically. So if you want to get a computer vision job, then definitely go do that. If you want to get a natural language processing job, definitely go do that. And even if you don't, even if you just want to learn data science or get a machine learning job or a data science job, the further you go down that list, the more stuff you do, the more certificates you put on your LinkedIn, that is really going to help you stand out. So those are the big ones that I would suggest. Is a lot of people don't think Spark is useful, so learn Spark. People really don't seem to get that everything's moved to the cloud, so please try to move to the cloud as well. And it's not as difficult as it sounds. It's just you need to understand that code is running elsewhere, and that's fine. Something I don't talk about too often, but would still be very beneficial, is learning something like Docker, which they probably will discuss in ML Ops as well, which is about productionizing and putting models in there on actual machines. So that's learning Docker would also be something that's beneficial that a lot of people don't know. I'm gonna quick take a drink for like 10 seconds, and so this cup is apparently black right now. It's actually green. Okay. So here's the problem. Like I have an assignment to create a dynamic website. If if you're just doing this for an assignment, I mean, I don't think I'm the right person to ask for that, but I'll still ask. I'll still try to answer. I'm simply confused on how to go about it. Like with HTML, which framework should I use? I'm sorry, you're asking the same thing again. Should I use Flask? Flask is great. I really love Flask. I think it's super easy. Um, that's probably my biggest recommendation. There's some other ones which you can look up if you want, like Streamlit. Plotly's Dash library may be of interest to you, like Fast API. Yeah. So I'm a data science bachelor's student working as an inter data analyst slash engineer. Um, how important is a master's degree for good data science slash data engineering jobs? In my opinion. So I think a master's is very beneficial, but I don't think it's necessary. So I think a faster way to do pretty much the same thing, unless you're getting a really good master's from like a well-known university and college, a master's is really just a way of saying that you did a little bit more specialization in a certain area. And so that's again when I would just recommend doing the certificates down below. I think if you grind out a bunch of those, that's really just a cheaper replacement to the average a master's degree. Honestly, most of them aren't super impressive. I see a lot of master's degrees that are like, I don't have a master's, by the way, and I'm not even done my undergraduate degree, by the way. If you guys don't know that, I'm about to finish that in statistics in the University of Waterloo, and so I can show that academics is important, but it's also not everything. And a master's, it does help. I've seen people get jobs because they have a master's, but also you're probably paying a lot of money, you're probably spending a lot of time, and you're doing something that you might not necessarily enjoy. If you do enjoy it, 100%. If you want to go down the academic route, 100%. But just to get a job, honestly, grind out the certificates down below, and it's probably a better option for you. And if you are grinding them out, make sure to watch my video, check my channel for it. It's about saving money basically on Coursera, and so look up. You'll find on my channel a video that has basically money falling into a toilet. So just go to videos on my section and try to find that one. And that's in the video description of that, it has something called Coursera Plus. And in the video, I explain why you might want to do Coursera Plus. And that could really help you just grind out these certificates and spend less money on it. But if you're going to do a couple of them, then just check the video description down below in this video or in this live, and I'd recommend the same certificates. Okay, please suggest some site to get jobs in Canada as so basically, yeah, okay, cool. Um, essentially what you want to do is go to LinkedIn, the LinkedIn job board, and they have a lot of stuff there. There's the Indeed job board, which you could do. Most importantly, most jobs are just on company websites, and so you need to pull up a list of jobs and just apply. It'll take hours, it'll take days, but just go through that application process. Keep applying, keep applying, keep applying on company websites everywhere, 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 and you just increase your probability so much if you, instead of applying to 10 jobs, apply to 100 jobs, or instead of applying to 100 jobs, you apply to 500 jobs. You increase your probability so much. So just keep applying, keep trying everywhere, and honestly, one job from another, most of them are relatively the same. Of course, a lot of people argue that there's a lot of differences between jobs, sure, but honestly, most of them are pretty much the same thing. I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. Which would I prefer, master's in data analytics or okay. So you did your bachelor's in mechanical. Thank you for telling me the background. Which would you prefer, master's in data analytics or master's in business analytics in USA with respect to job perspectives and career growth? So these are just terms, so they need to mean something in particular. In general, I'd probably say data analytics over business analytics, because whenever people say business, I feel like it's only really applicable if you're actually trying to make and run a business. Otherwise, you're learning business skills, but then you get thrown into like a company job and you're just doing some specific task anyway. So I wouldn't really worry too much. I'm now leaving to do the Stanford course. Awesome, awesome. I'm so proud of you. Really great. That's exactly what I want. Like I do not want you to come here. You're welcome, by the way. I don't want you to come here and then just sit and watch and do something else afterwards. I want you to come in here, go to the video description, click something that I think is the right thing to do. I have it there because I think that's the right thing to do. So absolutely. Thank you for asking the questions. I really hope you enjoy that. Let me know. Send me a message on LinkedIn about how that's going for you, and I'll talk to you there, hopefully. Besides the certificates, how can someone that's not in a master's degree path can make a good research by themselves? Is it even possible? Well, the certificates don't help for research. If you mean research for like academic research, and besides masters, you can read a lot of research papers and then do your own work on the side. And maybe I'm understanding the question wrong, but how I interpret this is how to do research. Well, I love reading research papers, and unfortunately, and actually in my job, I'm about to be getting paid to read research papers because we have to be state of the art right now. But before that, I didn't really have time for a long time since I started YouTube to be reading these research papers. That's a bit of an excuse. I'm sure I could find time, but they're great. So it's something I actually don't talk about often enough. So for the people that are here right now, if you can get to the stage where you're reading research papers, it's extremely, extremely useful. And even just the skill itself of trying to extract information from any research paper is something very useful, because it's a very weird kind of idea of reading something so state of the art that you can read blogs on and maybe you'll find some answers. But for the most part, the material is in the research paper. And so it's an interesting skill to actually read through that thing, and no, you will not understand 90% of it probably. You will try to get some 10% piece that says, oh, okay, they were trying to do this, and maybe if I go to the end in the appendix or whatever, in methods, they'll actually show you how they did it, and you'll very slightly understand. Or maybe if you can implement it yourself. And so a really good way that I don't talk about enough to understand machine learning in particular is to try and implement stuff from papers or research papers in something like Python. Oh, I got the hiccups. Okay. I'm asking because I heard that the main benefit of master's degree is the research experience. Well, the main benefit of a master's degree is whatever you're trying to get out of a master's degree. So if you're trying to do research, then it's research. If it's trying to get a job, it's get a job. If it's trying to just improve your portfolio and improve your skill set, I think that then that's great. I think it does all of those things at the same time, but I think it does, one in particular. If you're trying to aim towards something, then you really should have a mindset of like, okay, this is why I'm doing this, and you shouldn't just mindlessly go into a master's unless there is a really particular reason why you think it's a good idea. You're very welcome. Which province do you choose if you move to Canada? That's a hilarious question. I love it. Um, so, I mean, I'd probably recommend one of two, which is either Ontario or British Columbia. I think they're both gorgeous, and I've never been to BC, but everyone I know has been to BC. BC being short for British Columbia, that's basically on the far, never eat shredded wheat, west coast. And we're on the east coast in Ontario. So they're really nice places, and I highly recommend anyone try to get here. If you're currently not happy with your situation, Canada is, a highly rated country, but honestly still an underrated country. We have so little crime, and we're doing so much for the world, and it's just nice and safe and pretty, and there's so much to do, and everyone is, most people are nice. So I would choose Ontario or BC 100%. And could you guys please ask some questions? I seem to have run to the end, so I'm just going to ask a poll right now while you're doing that. And the poll today is going to be, you're trying to join UBC. That's great. University of British Columbia is UBC, if you guys don't know what that is. And it is a very, very good school, especially for something like master's degrees. It's very, very common to do something like computer science or an analytics master's degree at UBC. Okay, the other good schools, since we're on the topic, actually, let me ask this question. Since this is related, I'll say, do you wish to move to Canada / USA someday? Okay, let's ask that. And usually it's a fair amount of people. Let's find out. Okay, so hi Greg, is it necessary to do lead code to get a data scientist / machine learning engineer job in a product-based company in the United States? Okay, so basically, is it necessary to do lead code? So if you guys don't know what lead code is probably the leading or second leading platform in free basically preparing for data structures and algorithms types of interview questions. And so basically when you say do lead code helps a lot of different things, just making you better at any particular programming language because you actually are implementing it. I think that's when you get a chance to learn about a lot of different functions and methods, say in Python, different list functions and string functions that you probably have never seen before, and so it's great for that. And I think doing leak code itself has a lot of benefits. But in general, when you ask the question, I know that you were referring to, or I'm pretty sure you're referring to, do you need to grind out data structures and algorithms types of questions to get these jobs? And I'm going to answer it somewhat quickly because I actually answered this early on. But in general, the answer is that sometimes employers ask these questions, sometimes they don't. But I would say there's probably an 80-20, 90-10 split where the bigger proportion of people don't ask these types of questions too much, just a little bit to give you an idea, to gauge if you're actually a developer and you're not just, you know machine learning concepts, but you have no idea how to code it and implement it. Generally, that's what they're trying to do, is they want to make sure you understand very fundamental concepts like model training and underfitting versus overfitting, and maybe neural network architectures or machine learning algorithms in general. And then they also, most of them want to say like, okay, but can you actually code anything? You probably can if you've gotten that far, but they want to make sure. So they'll ask you a tiny bit. How difficult is it to learn machine learning and data science? 12 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 2 out of 10. I'm joking because it depends extremely heavily on your background and who you are as a person. But for the average person, I'll say the average case, you can get most of the concepts down in about 3 to 6 months, I would say, of continuous effort. And then within a year or two, you're going to start to feel really comfortable with these ideas. And definitely within 3 years, you'll feel really, really comfortable with these things if you keep doing it. So how basically what you should be asking, and it's a great question, but how difficult is it to learn machine learning and data science? Just go do it. Honestly, it's worth it 100%. If you're on my channel, if you're listening right now, absolutely go to the video description, go do the machine learning, or actually if you're starting completely from scratch, follow the pathway. IBM Data Science gets you a good introduction. Machine learning gets you the machine learning stuff. Deep learning gets you the deep learning stuff. All three of those are extremely important, and as further you can go down the chain as possible is great. And doing the certificates are extremely helpful to getting a job. So if you're doing them as well, if you're doing the content, I'd recommend getting those certificates if you can. You're very welcome. You did your bachelor's in computer science. Oh, great. Okay, so if you did your bachelor's in computer science, you obviously know how to code, and you can probably skip some stuff unless you don't know it yet, like moving to the cloud and kind of Flask and web development there. You can probably skip that, and I would definitely learn the machine learning and deep learning stuff down below. How to get in touch with me? LinkedIn. I generally respond to LinkedIn messages, and so by the way, I know that I don't. Not as many people are hearing this as I wish did hear this. I wish thousands of people heard this. Not kidding. If you want to contact me on LinkedIn. My name is like on there. It's Greg Hogg or Gregory Hogg. I forgot which one. But send me a message there or connect with me and then send me a message at the same time. And the way you should ask it to make sure I actually respond to you, and I don't want to come across as mean, but I can't. Hi Arshia, thank you so much. Advice, yes, thank you so much. Bye bye, have fun. So, where was I? I got distracted. Yes, so approaching me on LinkedIn, basically message me there, and do not ask me, can I ask you a question? Because then I just get confused because there's not a question there and I want to say like, yes, ask me a question or whatever, but I'm very busy. I have a lot to do, as with everybody does. And so generally how you can sneak an answer out of me is by just straight up asking, like, straight up ask your question and phrase it nicely. Be like, hi, you're awesome. Thanks so much. I really appreciate what you do. I have a question. This is the question, and I'll try to answer that for you. And hopefully it's a fairly quick answer that's rather opinionated rather than just some like question about like your Python error that sure I could probably answer it, but there's better ways to go through that, and you don't. For reference, I literally spent entire of yesterday on the job trying to fix TensorFlow in what's called CUDA, C-U-D-A, which is about making TensorFlow fast on a computer, just fighting with virtual environment errors in Python. And I didn't ask, I was asking someone at work because they were helpful for that, but I'm not going around asking random people on LinkedIn about, try to help me with this. So try to ask a question that I can give a good and important answer to, and just ask it right away. But since you're already here, you should really just be asking your question in here. I just want everyone listening to know that in the future, that's how you should, sneak an answer out of me, is just straight up ask me the question while being nice at the same time. Okay, I did my bachelor's. I'm just gonna read this while I take a drink. You did your bachelor's in electronics and communication engineering. Good. I think there's so many people, including myself, that should learn that but just don't know it. Electronics and communication engineering. I want to do masters in data science and machine learning. Well, yeah, absolutely go for it. Yeah, he did add me. That's great. Thank you. So, okay, let's talk about that. And guys, please ask some more questions right away here. I'm going to just cancel this poll and look at the answer quickly before I talk about that one. So, it looks like, from what I saw here, there's a little bit of a delay, so I have to wait a moment to look at it. I don't know why it does that. But from the poll, which should show up right now, yes, it did. Do you wish to move to Canada/USA someday? 83% yes, no 16%, and it's possible that some of those no's were I'm already I'm already here, or maybe it's part of maybe those yeses were I'm already here as well. But looks like people want to come over here, and so okay. Sorry to ignore the last question. I'll probably get back to that if I can. For those listening, please, 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 if you're trying to move to Canada and you're on my channel, it means you want to do it through a data science, machine learning, analytics route. Do not waste your time. Go to the video description, get the certificates. Okay, I'm not kidding. I'm saying it because that is almost certainly the right thing to do. And keep asking questions if you want to know more. but I have the pathway down below. Is grind out as many of those certificates as you can, and they really, really do wonders. Go do a master's if you think that's something that's worth it. Do you need to learn French? No, you don't, unless you're applying to Quebec. That's basically a province here in Canada. It's a part of Canada. No, you really don't. And so just if you're listening, please get those certificates. They're extremely, extremely helpful. They help people that are ridiculously smart here already. They'll really, really help other people that are in your position trying to move here. Employers recognize it. It's a cheap option. It's a quick option. It's a really, really good learning material. So just do definitely the machine learning one, deep learning one. Check the video description, and it says my pathway there. Please, that is the right thing for you to do. That's why I asked this question, to be absolutely certain I should say that. Yes, that is the right thing to do. Okay, so let me answer that now. So I did my bachelor's in electronics and communication engineering, and you want to do a master's in data science and machine learning. So I do 100% recommend a master's if that's something you want to do. It's just that it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money, and I think the certificates are a cheaper way to do that. But I absolutely think a master's is very, very useful, especially if you do it in a place that's really good, like in Canada and US and maybe places in Europe. And, I'm not going to make fun of any place, but I think those are the ones that people generally strive for. And so basically a master's in that is a great option. And so if you want to do that, I have, honestly, my answer is just go for it. Like it'll really help you. It'll really boost your portfolio. Do as many projects as you can alongside that. But honestly, just go have fun with it. And in India, the temperatures range from 20 to 40 Celsius. Will I be able to live in cold Canada winters? Not comfortably, not comfortably. There's so many people from India in Canada, like in my area, way more than there are people that were naturally from Canada. So you get used to it. Yeah. Basically that you'll be fine. It does get since we're talking Celsius, I'm not sure if you've looked it up, we get to as cold as -40 degrees Celsius at times in the winter, but generally on average, the winters are like -15, -20, -10 degrees Celsius, maybe just -5. And it's long. Like our winter is long. It basically it starts snowing in either November, December, or January. It almost certainly snows in December, but sometimes like it probably hasn't once. Um, and I'm sure it snowed in November before, maybe earlier. So it starts getting cold in like October, November, and then it doesn't get warm again until generally March is still a cold year or a cold month. April itself can still be a cold month sometimes. It snows in April for sure. And so basically, it's like 6 months of what is generally pretty cold. Like you have to wear pants and a coat. So it's a cold country, but that's probably that's probably our downside. Like it's such a nice country, and we low crime rates, relatively low poverty, and access to food for pretty cheap, healthy food, and great people. So many great options here. And so many companies. So much. That's a great economy. The USA's economy is a lot bigger. They make a lot more money. They also have a lot more people, but in general, they make more money. Um, but the US is, it's not as safe. It is probably warmer on average most places, if not all of them. But it's a conversation about where you want to live. Honestly, Canada is great. I would recommend Ontario or British Columbia for sure. But anywhere here is great. In the U.S., I can't really say the same for all of them. Some of the areas are just not safe. Like I want to at least feel relatively comfortable walking home at night at like 10 p.m. when it's dark out. So I feel pretty comfortable here in Waterloo for anyone that doesn't know. So I would move right to Waterloo. In India, the temperatures. No, why did I say that? We just talked about that for a long time. So what do recruiters look for in a fresher's resume and how to stand out? Honestly, so I'm just gonna call this because uh, I I think I'm done with the live stream now, but so what we look for in general on a fresher's resume, and I don't use the term fresher, but I know what you mean by that, is so SQL, the skill sets you need are definitely SQL. Um, PySpark is very beneficial if you can. NumPy, Pandas, basically they call it the NumPy stack, which means NumPy, Pandas. It sometimes means PySpark, and it often means TensorFlow slash Keras and scikit-learn. Those are all great, but definitely SQL for any data science resume. And seriously, the certificates down below are a great way to stand out, 100%. They're okay. I saw that, and then it was retracted right away. Okay, I'm gonna call it, and I honestly am sorry for pissing you guys off for saying this, but please check the video description. If you're gonna take something from this, go do those certificates. They're a great way to stand out. Follow the pathway. Go do data science machine learning from that pathway. It's definitely what I'd recommend. Unless, without further questions asking, that's what I'd recommend. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a great time. I hope I answered some questions. We got a lot of good questions here. And yeah, it was a great time. So thank you all so much. And I'll see you next time. I'm just going to stick around for, 15, 20 seconds to see if there's any messages about like goodbye or last second questions. If you can drop a like on the live stream before you go, I'd also really appreciate that. There's no co-op in UBC. Okay. I didn't actually know that, but there's co-op in Waterloo. Yeah, co-op's definitely better. Like if you can do co-op, you get access to so many jobs. Like especially in Waterloo, if you can do Waterloo co-op, it is phenomenal and it's life-changing. A university degree is always life-changing, but like Waterloo in particular is just like so good. Our co-op connections for different companies are fantastic. Uh, yeah. Okay, and I already did. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Oh, hi. Oh, you're saying hi, but I just said I was gonna call it. Um, Hi. I really appreciate it. If I'll stick around for you. So if you have one or two questions, I will try to answer those for you. So I'll stick around for that. All right, now I'm awkwardly sitting here silent when there's when I was waiting for a question. Hopefully, sorry, I in the meantime, while I'm waiting for that, hopefully you do ask a question. Can someone ask a question, please? For those that just joined, I do plan on dropping off pretty soon, just to let you know. You're working on a project with facing issue to upload the datasets. Okay, what's the issue? Okay, I mean the viewer count's going back up, so 14 now. I might stay for this. I don't know. I was saying I was gonna leave, but guys, if you have questions, I'll probably stick around. How to find internships in the data science field. Um, so to get an internship, it is very helpful if your university or college has somewhere around some sort of piece of that. So not necessarily you don't have to. A lot of people still, even in my school, the people that aren't in the co-op or university or internship program, they still find summer jobs without that. But what you don't get is the job board and the job connections from from the university, and so it's a lot tougher without that. But a lot of people don't have that option. So to do that, how to find an internship? Well, to actually find a job. Sorry, I have the hiccups from drinking that. To find internships, so to actually find the job themselves, you should go to the LinkedIn job board, and they have lots of those. Maybe the Indeed job board and just company websites. They have internships open most of the year round. COVID stopped some internship programs, but they should be starting back up again. And you'll find those jobs there. And to get one, to actually get an internship, and I'll say a million times, but it's honestly true. Get the certificates down below in the video description in that order. I really, really think they're beneficial for anybody that can. So I highly recommend that. And the skills that you need are data science, machine learning, which are very broad, I know, but data science generally encompasses SQL, and I'll say analytics and machine learning, so I don't confuse anybody. So analytics skills, so probably some statistics background would be very helpful. A statistics degree is really helpful if you can. Also, programming is very beneficial, so make sure you know how to code. And if you can do the data structures and algorithm stuff, that's beneficial, but it wouldn't be my focus too much. What I would do is learn SQL is extremely helpful. Make sure you know that. PySpark or Apache Spark is very beneficial. I would highly recommend that. And what else would I say? So to get an internship in particular, I would learn machine learning still as quickly as you can. So in the video description, there's machine learning and the deep learning stuff. I would highly recommend that just for data science. Seriously, it's very beneficial. And if you want to stand out and even just do well in general, I would do Flask. So try to learn Flask, which is going to help you make a website in machine learning. We often need people to learn this stuff because when you're actually making machine learning models like by yourself, you're just kind of messing around. But when you go to a job, they need to make sure you can implement this. And so Flask is a good way. It's not necessarily the way that the company will use, although they might, but it's just a nice, easy way for you to show that you know how to deploy models and how to put them in production. So that'd be a good way to stand out as well. And yeah, I think that would be great. So in general, I'll just describe the pathway down below that I described. Is generally to get an introduction, you start with the IBM data science. It's free, but since you're doing it anyway, I would get the certificate because employers love the certificate and it's not overly expensive. After that, you have a general data science background. And the next thing you should do is probably learn machine learning, okay? And that along the way teaches you all the important libraries that are useful for just data science stuff as well, like just analytics stuff. Like might not necessarily teach you Spark, although some blogs online will show PySpark. It will teach you the pandas library, which people often love. I'm not a huge fan of complex panda stuff, but I definitely use it for basic, simple manipulations. NumPy is going to allow you to transfer this to stuff like scikit-learn and TensorFlow and Keras to make machine learning models. So I would highly recommend switching to that if you can. So please follow that pathway down below, but it carries on more than that. Okay, so that's what I'd recommend for everybody. But then to really stand out, what I start to say is if you can do the data structures and algorithms, that would be beneficial. If you can do Flask and if you can do move to the cloud is extremely useful. So AWS or GCP or Heroku or Azure, those are the big, it's the big three, and then Heroku as well is pretty popular. And yeah, and then you would progress to something more particular, but even then, generally the deep learning specialization, after you do that, you should have a good idea of the various problems that you can solve, and that's pretty much everything that statistics ideas can help solve. So computer vision, natural language processing, just regression problems, forecasting problems, so many different problems you can solve, and so that's why I'd recommend doing the deep learning, and that's why employers love it so much, is it's just such a broad, you can solve so many different problems now because you understand these techniques, and that's why employers love the certificate in particular. Okay, what advice would I give to someone who's interested in the machine learning research field? Focus on marks for now, honestly. For academics, for most of life, I don't really recommend getting super top-notch marks. They're always great if you can do that. But if you're doing research, then I would probably try to go into a good university degree or college. Get really good marks if you can. Put your head down and go into that. You do a master's, try to get good marks, and study something of interest, and just carry on from there. I am Hassan and I work in Django. I need to do a recommendation system to recommend article. Um, just look at a blog online. Actually, I'll make a video at some point. I don't have one right now, but making a recommendation system. But follow someone's tutorial, and honestly, it's not too bad. Um, and okay. I'll answer again last minute questions if anyone's here. Thank you so much for joining. By the way, I really appreciate it. Good to see you. But I would like to drop off soon. If there's any last minute questions again, we'll see how long I can get myself to stick around, because last time I said that 20 minutes ago. I'm sure some of you are still here from that. I can tell from the numbers. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, if there's any last minute questions, I'll answer those. If you want to do research, currently doing masters, please suggest something in ML to do research. So something to do, well, suggest something to research. So that's when I don't recommend doing a master's, is when, I mean, you've already done it, so there's no point harping on the past. But in general, you should be interested in something in particular. But if you're not, if you just like machine learning in general, and I guess that's when a lot of people just get an introduction to the idea as well. But something cool to research in machine learning, I would definitely just start applying computer vision or natural language processing models. You could make a pretty interesting analysis about those in particular. Can I recommend some websites for practice, because IBM Data Science is strong theory, but practice is better? IBM Data Science is actually pretty focused on applied stuff as well. But some website for practice. So do the TensorFlow specialization down below. So I forgot if that's step 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that. I haven't looked in it a bit, but I would definitely just do the TensorFlow stuff. And remember, the content, all of that stuff is free. It's just I often recommend the certificate since you're doing it anyway. But I would definitely do the TensorFlow. It's free, the TensorFlow specialization, and that will give you great practice. So if you're just talking IBM data science, you might not be ready for deep learning yet, and that's why I'm trying to get you to go to that. I think it's a good idea. But to learn, to practice more stuff around just data science, that's when you probably want to start just kind of messing around with your own projects. Maybe go to Kaggle, and Kaggle has a lot of different data sets where you can do just exploratory data analysis. I should be releasing a video, and hopefully today, but at least in the next few days, about exploratory data analysis on the Olympics. And there's going to be, I have a fraud detection video where we do machine learning on that, and a lot of different other videos as well. So practice is not better. Practice is required in combination with theory. I think they're equally important, really, but you need to know theory before you can practice, at least without following someone's code. Okay, so does it matter if one has a master's degree in data science versus relevant certifications from Coursera? So it matters depending on what you want to do. So if you're trying to apply to a FANG level company, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, then they don't care for your certificates. They want you to have a master's degree. But if you're trying for the medium level jobs, which is the majority of jobs in Canada and US and other often desirable places to work, you don't need a master's degree. It does help. I definitely think it always helps, and it does not hurt for sure. But I don't think it's necessarily the amount of time that you need to spend on these things. You probably just need to spend maybe 6 months, 3 months grinding out these certificates, and the pathway I have is down below to get those certificates. I don't think it matters too much, honestly. I'm sure, some employers, it differs, and I'm talking on average for sure. There's definitely employers out there that would prefer a master's over, even getting like 6 different certificates. But there's also many employers that wouldn't see the difference or would be more impressed with the certificates because they're actually very hands-on. They know this stuff. Like they've done this stuff. They've done it before themselves, so they know how good it is. So there's people that go both ways. Obviously, there's ones that prefer a master's. There's very few that require a master's, but there's some. I mean, for machine learning jobs, some of them say they require a master's when they really don't, by the way. Uh, a lot of people get in without them for the medium level jobs, even if it says it. And yeah, so honestly, I would go the certificates route for most people. It's just cheaper, it's faster, it's honestly still just better known because I see a lot of master's degrees that are just completely unheard of and we really don't know how good they are. But for the Coursera stuff, we know exactly what you've done and people love it. Seriously, they love them. So go to the video description, check out those certificates. They are awesome. Do you really need a strong statistics background as a data scientist? So, okay, so just for background, and because everyone everyone has a different background, but mine is in statistics. And so when I went to learn this stuff, it was definitely easier for me because I understood the idea of building regression models and learning coefficients and interpreting models and hypothesis tests, if you ever talk about that. Um, and definitely the idea of correlation between variables and a little bit about what a random variable is very beneficial. But do you have to have a strong statistics background? Not really. You need to have a little bit of a statistics background, basically the things I just said, and if you need to hear it again, then rewind. But those basic concepts in statistics would be very beneficial for everybody, and you don't really need anything in particular. But it all helps. It definitely helps, like 100% it helps. Do you need engineering knowledge to become a machine learning specialist? So engineering in what? I mean, engineering from like a computer science point of view, yeah, you need to be a pretty good programmer. But engineering for like, mechanical or mechatronics or any of the many engineering programs there are, not really. But that's when you can really stand out in your field is if you do take some of these engineerings and you go learn machine learning on the side, and that's the friend I've talked about once or twice. For those people that have stuck around for the this whole time, they're basically like a biomedical engineer, and they learn data science and machine learning on the side. And so combining those, applying that in a specific workplace that makes sense for that, that's great as well. Any type of project you should have in resume to stand out. So any type of project, from a general type, let me just fix the camera a little bit. I think that's better. Um, so in general, there's not anything you need, but often I think it's good to have a Flask project on there. So make sure you check my Flask video. It's really not as hard as you might think it is to do a Flask video, quite honestly. Um, but they're very useful. Basically, employers need to know that you can deploy models and actually have something that's useful to them. So deploying models is useful, except or making machine learning models is useful, except deploying it after you've made it is what's actually useful to them, and so it's useful to have that skill on there. Not necessary, not necessary. Something else that's really useful is being on the cloud. So it definitely shows developer experience in AWS or GCP or Azure. Those would also really help you stand out as well. And any type of product in general, any sort of deep learning work is where the world is headed because it's so diverse. You can solve many different problems just by knowing the idea of training a deep learning model and knowing different layers. And so that's when I'd really recommend doing the deep learning specialization down below so that you can follow along with that. Good question, though. I get the importance of statistics, but how important is it to master each and every concept? Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, like, not really. And that's why I didn't even mention advanced probabilities, because it is super hard, 100%. It's super hard. And it's not worth spending time on these concepts. I mean, you'll find people that disagree with me, and you're going to find probably a lot of people that say, oh, yeah, you really should understand the advanced probability for whatever reason. And then when you go on the job, like I don't touch advanced probability. I mean, it might be useful. I'm not going to say it's never useful. It's hardly necessary, but not really. For the majority of jobs, honestly, the statistics concepts that I think are useful are well, that I think are necessary is learning regression. So I definitely understand how a regression model works, and because that's the idea of a linear model, and it's the introduction to nonlinear models is making a linear model because generally it's just applying nonlinear stuff to linear functions. It's really all linear. Um, And yeah, so understanding how to build a model in statistics is the most important part of that, and definitely correlation between variables and random variables in general. The distributions, you should, I didn't actually, I forgot to mention it because I guess I skipped over too quickly, but learning or what a normal distribution is probably very beneficial for those that don't know. Basically, a distribution or a probability distribution, it just means assigning likelihood to different events. So rolling a die, if I roll a 5, there's a 1 out of 6 chance of getting that. The probability distribution is uniform, for example, because it's a uniform or the same probability for each possible event, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the most popular distribution is what's called a normal distribution or Gaussian distribution, which is shaped like this. It's like this, and basically it's a bell-shaped curve, which means that the majority of the probability lies in this mean value here, and it gets less and less likely as we go out to the sides in a symmetric fashion. So I think understanding that's a good idea. And yeah, okay, so this is a really good question, so please stick around for this one. What about the audit-only option on Coursera? At this moment, I can't afford paying for the certificate. Is watching the videos and practicing without getting a certificate enough? Yes, it's great, okay? For reference, me personally, I do not have any of those certificates on my LinkedIn. So why am I vouching for it? Well, because there's a lot of people that don't have specifically statistics, which is the underlying machine learning, uh, Waterloo, okay, that's a really well-known university, undergraduate math degree, and co-op experience where I already have a bunch of co-op jobs, and I've already also done a lot of projects and other stuff on the side. So I don't think that I need to get the certificates. It's just for so many people, it's a great option if you can. So if you can't afford it, yeah, you can't afford it. That's totally okay. And the audit only option is really fantastic. It's free. You just watch the videos. It's great material. It's also on YouTube, by the way, I believe. The deep learning parts of the deep learning specialization are definitely on YouTube, and it's just fantastic. Like the material is so good. So yeah, I recommend getting the certificates if you can, but if you can't, the material is still phenomenal. And my voice is officially kind of dead at this point, and we're hitting another low point. So I am definitely going to drop off here. For anyone here, again, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you next time. Please drop a like if you haven't already done that. I bet you guys already have, though. And I will see you next time. Thanks so much for coming. You can also apply for financial aid. Yeah. Bye bye.